Good morning, folks. It's good to be here with you today. It's going to be a great day, as Tony the Tiger would say. Uh, just want to thank Philip Reed and Reed Publications and Newspapers, and thank them for sponsoring our little talk with you today. I hope it's helping. Today, what I want to talk about is the challenge. The challenge. So, when you think about the challenge, the question that comes to my mind is, what are you doing? What are you doing? So this is the question of the ages when in the challenges, what are you doing? We tend to get caught up in uh, this question thinking, am I doing something wrong? Is people watching me? You know what I mean? In our challenges, it seems like that the world's eyes are upon us and we become enclosed. So, but what I want to talk to you about this morning is the real question is not about the act or about what's going on. It's about you. So there's three things I want to deal with this morning. Number one is that there is no real change without confronting this question. So we're thinking about challenges, right? And then we're thinking about, well, what are you doing about it? And so you cannot completely answer the question of the challenge without asking the question, what are you doing about it? Second thing I want us to get through today is all justification and reasoning becomes servant to this question, not the challenge, but what are you doing? And so if you don't understand that, then you're going to start blaming this circumstance or that person about what you're going through. In reality, remember, the challenge is not about what's going on. The challenge is about you. So the third thing I want us to go get through today is the habits and processes are measured by this activity. What are you doing? So if you don't measure the processes and habits, then you find yourself meeting that same challenge again and again. Why? Because you're not recognizing the habits and what's in your normal everyday routine that is facilitating or feeding this challenge. You don't recognize it until it comes up. And so this is where the question's answered. So I'm going to get a little bit personal this morning, as I normally do. I figure if it doesn't work for me, it's not going to work for you either. And so I've learned how to overcome challenges, and I am still learning. But what I'm going to share with you today is things that I've learned. So back in 1984, I was 23 years old, living in Pampa, Texas, pretty much a newlywed, been married a year and a half, and my wife and I and my 6-month-old son were living in a one-bedroom shack, which is no longer in existence because I know this. Last time I was in the area, I drove by and it's gone. But it was, but it was home. It was a place. It was a place to live. So we're moving along in life, and I am working in the oil field, and I'm doing lots of hours, at 10 to 12 hours a day, six days a week. So I'm working a lot, but I'm young, 23 years old. I'm fine. And so my wife decided she wanted to go back and see her family here in Oklahoma. And so we made arrangements, and she takes our only vehicle. We live in a one-bedroom shack. And so she takes our vehicle and goes to Oklahoma. and going to stay there for the week. And so, but the middle of the week, I give her a call, and we're talking, and she says, "Oh, I'm ready to come home." And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready for you to be home." And so I said, "I'll call you again on Friday," and she's coming back the next weekend. And so uh, I call her on Friday, and the surprise of my life happened. And so I'm talking to her, and she drops the bombshell on me and says, "I'm not coming home." This is a real short version of a long, extended, life changing experience in my life. Was it a challenge? You better believe it. First of all, the feelings went all haywire, and I'm like, whoa, this is what's going on here. My head's spinning, and I'm a young man, uh, got a 6-month-old son. She takes my truck, and then takes my kid, and then comes back and takes my dog. She took everything. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, it was terrible, Sarah. Uh, but my head's just spinning, my emotions are going crazy. Thank the Lord I'm working so much, because I'm just able to pour myself into work, even though I'm still, it's just devastating. And so, in the meantime, my actions, because of my emotional feeling, I'm reaching for straws, and yes, I'm loving God and serving God, going to church, all this kind of good stuff, what good people do or whatever, and so uh, I'm doing this, but on the side, my head's spinning, my emotions are going crazy, and so I reach out, and there's a one night when I thought, to heck with it, and I went out there, went to the bar and got drunk, and I mean, I'm just trying to deal with life. It's a challenge. Was that the right thing to do? Well, probably not, but when that happened, when I did that, I came home. My little 1-bedroom house all by myself, and it's really lonely now. And I'm sitting on the couch, and the Lord talked to me. I opened, I got the Bible out, and I opened it up, and he started talking to me. And what he talked to me through was Psalms 37, verses 3 through 5. And I can tell you what it says. He said, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Enjoy safety. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he'll do this. He'll make your righteousness shine like the morning, and the justice of your cause like the noonday sun." So that's the Bible version. What's it really mean? Trust in the Lord and do right. Then you will live in a safe place. When you put your desire into what God wants, he's going to give you the desire that you want. And when you commit your way to him and put that trust in him, he's going to do this. He's going to make you stand in the right place, and he's going to make people recognize it. So, sometimes we read the Bible, and it's a little confusing because of the way it's written, but I just want to share with you what he's speaking to me. And so it was a journey for me. I'm talking years. Uh, it was a great challenge, folks. I'm not going to get too much in that because of sake of time. But what I do want to share with you is some thoughts here. And the thing that I want to share with you is things that we hate, because when we're talking about challenges, who wants a challenge? Now, if we come up with the challenge, that's fine. But when the challenge is imposed upon us, this is what we do. The term, I hate that. It's one we use loosely, but in reality, what it means is I don't want to be challenged in that way. I'm going to tell you, don't be afraid. I'm going to speak words of encouragement into you. Don't be afraid of the challenge. Don't let what you face intimidate or demean you. Get your focus right. Quit looking at the challenge and get your eyes on the one who has equipped you for every challenge. There's no mountain too high, no valley too deep. The one who brought you to your present position has lined your life with all the tools you need to overcome in this challenge. Everything we've gone through, everything you've learned, everything that you've attained is for one purpose, and that's to help you overcome in the challenge that you're in right now. Any and everything that is greater than your ability in the challenge has a God answer attached to it. So I want to go over a few thoughts on what I just read to you. Things we hate. Number one, I want you to understand what doesn't bury you has the ability to lift you up. And if you don't see this, you're already buried. But remember last week we talked about the psychologists and the pessimist and the optimist and the half glass full, half glass empty, glass half empty. Well, this is the concept. You have to see beyond where you are, because if you don't see beyond where you are, you're already buried. And you gotta recognize that the one who brought you here is the one that's going to lead you through. Don't focus on the challenge. Don't over focus on it. So the second thing I want you to understand is that you are not what you face. Now remember, when we're in these great challenges, we see the whole world is looking at us. And they're saying, well, look, are they going to make it, and this and that. Well, let me tell you something, folks. One thing is, people are too busy with their own life to focus on yours. They might have a comment, but that's about all there is to it. They're not concerned whether you're going to overcome or not, unless it's your mama. Yeah, mama wants you to, but when we start thinking everybody's watching us, because we're going through this bad situation, well, you know what? So what? Let them watch. What you're going through is not who you are. You are a lot greater than the challenge. So the second question I want to ask you in the things that we hate is, where are you looking? Where are you looking? So this is something I learned decades ago, long time ago, and I took it in me, and I remind myself of this over and over again because it's so true. But the thought is, you will never see or recognize the answer when you're focused on the problem. You'll never see the answer when you are focused or looking at the problem. Never, never. I know sometimes I got to pause and I just got to let you think about that. Think about it. When you are focused on something, and what you're really supposed to be focused on is right over here. Well, you can't see it because you're too focused on what you're looking at. And so when we look at that, where are you looking? You gotta recognize, well, I can't see the answer. Well, okay, you can't see the answer. Quit looking at the problem and start looking at, you know what, I'm gonna overcome. I am gonna get on the other side of this. Now, when you're in the challenge, you don't recognize that. You think this is the way life is always going to be. Well, it's not. It's going to be over. You're going to get through it. And so you never see the answer looking at the problem. So when I ask you the question, what are you looking at? Well, you might say, well, I'm looking at God. God's got the answer. Well, I'm going to tell you something. God doesn't have the answer. Whoa, that's a big one. God doesn't have the answer because God is the answer. When we're looking for a handout from God, we're shorting ourselves because He is the answer. Everything about Him is the answer. He doesn't have to step outside of Himself to accommodate whatever it is that you're needing in your challenge. He just has to be Himself. He is the answer. So I've got a friend that shared some thoughts with me that I'd heard before, but I just thought it was appropriate for this morning. And the statement is, how can we change in this matter, in this atmosphere? Well, there's a 7-step process to developing who you are or who I am. So the first step is in the thought. You take no other step without the first step. If you don't take the first step, you're not going to take the second step. So, but the second step is in the emotions. That's how you feel. That's how you react. That's, what your demeanor on whether you're going to overcome or not in life. It is based upon the thought that turns into an emotion, and then the emotion turns into words. And so this is kind of interesting because sometimes we say things that we really don't mean logically, but we say things in the heat of the moment because our emotions are stirred. Can I get a witness in the house? Yes. And the fourth thing that happens is our words turn into actions. You see, you build your life with words. You need to really understand this. If you're telling yourself you're never going to make it, well, guess what? You're not going to make it. But if you're telling yourself this is no step for a climber, then you'll take that next step. So I don't say that we need to deny what we're going through, but we need to consciously say, yes, I can take this next step, and I'm going to. And so that's where the words turn into action. So actions turn into patterns. And so when you develop an action and that action works, then you make a pattern out of it. I remember my mom when I was a kid. We didn't have a whole lot of money, and dad wasn't in my life, so it's just mom and some kids, and she took up sewing, and she would even create stuff. And so how would she do it? Was she would go to whatever you call that store, and she would pick up patterns. And what was the pattern? Well, it would show you how to create this, whatever it was she was going to sew. And that's what we do when we find actions that work. We develop a pattern, and then the next thing that happens, we make it a habit. It's a habit. Well, it's worked for me back then, so it's going to work for me today and tomorrow, so it's going to be a habit. And so then the last thing that happens when we develop all our habits, it turns into who you are or your character. So I want to go over this. And when I wrote this down, I wrote it down for me, so I'm going to have to interpret it for you. But thoughts precede feelings every time. Now, when I say that, you might think, well, yeah, I mean, thought does precede feelings. But when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't recognize that because the emotions rise up, and then you get the thoughts. But you have to understand you're not going to have an emotional uprising without the thought coming in first. And so this reminds me of one of my teachers, Dr. Caroline Leaf. And Caroline Leaf, she was a cognitive neuroscientist. That's what she studied the brain and how the brain operates. But she said that when you have a thought, and thought has flavor to it, and so if it's a good thought, then it's like a tree that's just in full bloom. It's amazing to watch it. You actually see pictures of how, I don't know how they do it, but they take pictures of the brain, and it shows the thought, and it's like a well-developed tree. If it's a bad thought, it's like a tree that has no leaves, nothing. It's just a trunk and some sticks. And so there's no life to it. And so feelings produce a harbor for thoughts to dwell. And that's where that tree is. So these feed off one another, emotions and words or thoughts. So it comes first with the thought, but then when you go through a bad experience in life, it goes into your brain, and your brain says, well, this is a bad experience. So we're sticking in here. We're not going to forget it. And so when you go through something else that appears to be like that really bad experience, it connects to that bad experience. And so the word, then an emotion comes up, and you say, oh no, I'm not going to go through this again. And so we react based upon what we experienced. So words are formed in the harbor of thought. Remember, we've got thought, emotions, and words. Words are formed in the harbor of thought. The flavor of the word is mixed in the emotion that is felt. The flavor of the word is mixed in the emotion that's felt. So when we have the thought, the emotion comes in, our words come out. So how does that word come out? It comes because it's been influenced by the thought and the emotion. Accuracy of the word is built in the parameters of that thought, and truth cannot be extended past the confines the thought that the mind dwells upon. The words pulled from the file is inside the person. So I want to explain that part. You cannot think any higher than what you allow yourself to think. And so remember the thought, if it's a good thought, it's like a well-developed tree. If it's a bad thought, it's like a dead tree. And so when you have that challenge come in and it's telling you, well, it's like this, and it goes back to whatever that thought is. And so you can't think any higher than that. So have you ever dealt with somebody that's really going through trauma, and you go in and try to counsel them, try to help them, and you can't, because they won't allow their minds to go beyond the thought that has been indelibly imprinted in their brains. You know what I'm saying? So you can't go above what you think. So there's this is what you call the 7 steps to building a life. If you don't get the first 3 right, what are the first 3? The word, the emotion, or the thought, the emotion, and the word. That's what comes out of your mouth. If you don't get those first 3 right, the rest don't even matter, because it's just going to fall in line with those first 3 hurdles that you have to overcome in life. So if you know what I'm saying, we're going to have challenges. Maybe you're having a challenge right now. Maybe you're going through an experience like I did way back there. And Lord of mercy, I've been through some other ones just like it. So challenges are not there to prove what you cannot do. They will prove what you can do. And so if you don't step beyond that challenge, the challenge is going to keep you in a place that is uncomfortable, and it's a place that will take your life away from you. So I want you to recognize, guys, I want you to see this, that this challenge is not here to stop you. This challenge is here to make you greater than you ever thought you could be. Because on the other side of the challenge is what I call purpose. This is where you find your reason for being here. And so, as bad as an experience as I went through when I was 23 years old, 24 years old, I was 23. As bad as that experience was, what the Lord built in me as I walked through that challenge, I am able to help so many people. And if you can get past the hurt, the trauma, the confusion, the head spinning, if you can get past that, you got a reason. And this challenge is going to bring you to that reason. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.